Welcome to Jurassic Park.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Why don't we just wait here for a little while?
Do you want to know what it is?
There's no knowing where you might be swept off to.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Shepherds we shall be, for thee, my Lord, for thee.
I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
There's a special rug in hell reserved for people who waste good scotch.
He peed on my rug!
He peed on the dude's rug.
Do your worst.
Final report of the commercial starship Nostromo.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Well, welcome to your feature presentation. We're talking Godzilla -1 today. Really excited for this review. We're just going to jump right into it. It's a lovely Saturday when you're listening to this, and we're just going to enjoy. Maybe it's snowy outside. It's snowy up in Michigan, so let's just dive right into this movie. With me today is the classic co-host, Andrew McKay.
What's up?
How's it going, buddy?
It's going great, man. I'm really excited. I love this movie a lot, and this was a great reason to watch it again.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. The best part about this podcast is like having homework where you're like, I have to watch this movie again. You know, sorry, I've got, it's for the pod, you know.
Yeah.
And with us is the very talented, the very attractive, might I say,
Wow.
Andrew Clark. How's it going, buddy?
Wow, that's one of the best intros I've ever received. Thank you.
He's hot. He's here. He's Clark.
Well, yeah, what's up? This is we've been talking about this movie for a minute, so I'm excited to get in and discuss. It's one of the better films I've seen in a long time.
It's so amazing. Somebody just asked me what is some like good movies I've been seeing lately. And I brought up, I don't know if Clark, if you've seen this, but The Train to Busan. Have you seen that movie?
I've not seen that one.
Oh,
no.
It's a Korean zombie movie. Gotta check it out. It's so good. But I brought up that movie, and even though it was last year, Godzilla -1, because I'm like, this is one of those movies that is just so. It's written well. It's directed well. It looks good. The characters have points. Like it's. This is what I want a movie to be, and it's cool to see that. But yeah. And just for clarification, I'm going to call these Andrews McKay and Clark from now on.
Great. Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
As a non-sports guy, I feel like it feels awkward for me to do that. Clark, you probably feel more comfortable with last names, right? Because you play a little.
That was like
sports.
my whole college experience was just my last name.
Yeah.
So,
you were
and even right. The sports experience is pretty. Yeah. Clark works. I respond pretty well to that.
All right, Clark. McKay, do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, sports was definitely McKay. When you have like a 1 or 2 syllable last name, the coaches will just default to that because that's like on your jersey or whatever. But also being a teacher, people will just call me McKay, Mr. McKay, whatever. Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Pretty standard.
And it's not that I didn't play sports, but middle school homeschool basketball is as high as I got, and I don't know. Would you guys say that counts? Does that count as a sports or?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you ran around, we'll count it.
Yeah.
If you ran
Your
around.
basketball career got further than my basketball career.
Oh, there you go. But that was the furthest career I had, my basketball. And I was like,
You're a pretty good coach pitch baseball player.
So, yeah, that was fun.
So you have that for you. Yep.
I wonder if we talked about that in our last episode. But yeah, me and Clark were on a coach pitch for like 3 years together.
Yeah.
3-4 years.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was
fun.
fun.
We just didn't want to move up. So it worked out.
Or we're held back. We don't know.
Semantics. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah. The Raptors is classic. It's a classic team.
Oh yeah. The Raptors.
So me and Clarky saw this together, and that was a really fun experience. I'd love to dive into that a bit. But McKay, what was your first experience watching Godzilla -1?
I couldn't find it in the theater. Around me, by the time I had heard that it was really, really good, I think it was on its way out because it was pretty limited. So first time watching it was, I think, when it went on Netflix. Is that where it's at right now, Netflix?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
So
in-home viewing.
Did you watch the colored version? I saw they also released a black and white version, which I kind of wanted to see.
Yeah, I've not seen the black and white one. That sounds intriguing.
I feel like that would be so cool because I feel like that would just help streamline all of the animation as well, even though it's not a ton there. Like I just like, oh, I bet what movie was it? The Mist. I feel like has some really poor CG.
Oh yeah.
And there's a black and white version. I'm like, oh, I bet that just kind of makes it even look that much better. But Clark,
not to say that Godzilla -1 has poor CG because it's very good.
It's amazing. But I just feel like it even kind of blends it even more. I was like, oh, maybe next viewing, and it just feels it's that classic monster movie too. So
yeah, true.
That's pretty cool. But Clark, I don't know if you remember. So your wife saw it with us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about why your wife knows Japanese movies better than some of us do?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know this.
Yeah, so she spent 12 years of her life in Japan.
Whoa.
Yeah, a military kid, but they're based in Okinawa, on the base there. So for her, it was one of those like, it's not the same vibe, but like Parasite that was filmed. You know, it's a Korean made movie. Like, just that whole culture, that the Asian culture, she's always just been fascinated with because she grew up around it. So then when you have like a Godzilla -1 that's basically all in Japanese, and we'd obviously been hearing like pretty high reviews of it, and just like the filming and just the style of it, to like your point, Heath, like it feels like a black and white Godzilla movie, which is why I think it's like the old school ones. So for her, it was one of those like, let's go see it, because she learned Japanese when she was younger. Like she has some of that retention of that language too. So it was cool to kind of sit there with her and watch it and have her like point out, be like, okay, they're speaking more slang here. That's not just straightforward of like the proper language and some of that stuff, which is honestly for me, just reading the subtitles, like I would have never obviously picked that up. But I feel like it'd be like, you know, an English speaking film. They don't speak just proper English. Like there's the slang, there's some of that. So it just, I think to that credit, it was kind of cool to know that same vibe was happening in this film. If that sounds really maybe white tourist, I apologize, but there's just, that was like, I thought really kind of cool to watch it that with her and know that like she was finding way more depth and enjoyment in it because it reminded her a little bit of home and some of that too. So
yeah.
Was she the inspiration to have the wave behind you, the painting?
Oh yeah, dude, that's
the wave off Kanagawa
forever. Yep, that's been in our wave. That's been in our house forever, and there's a bunch of little kind of Japanese things strewn throughout our home, and
that's
even
awesome.
when we go to visit her parents who now live in North Carolina, it's the same vibe. Like her dad is an incredible cook because he can spend so much time. A lot of Southeast Asia, Japan, so he does all the good food from there, and so it's kind of fun. Like I don't know, it doesn't feel exploitative. It feels like just something that's part of their life, which is cool.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's not the. I went to Japan for one summer, and so I have a samurai sword above my bed. It's like actually a part of like you appreciate that culture, and I think for all the issues we're having with, movies right now, especially in Hollywood, like I look at some of these specifically, like Asian countries are doing so good. I mean, like we just talked about, like Train to Busan, which is a Korean film. Parasite was a Korean film. Like this movie is Japanese, you know, and just like, man, these are good movies and they're doing it cheaper. So they don't even need to make that much, but they're still blowing all these, like, I don't even know. I'd be really interested to see what the Parasite budget was, but they estimate the budget for Godzilla -1 between 10 and 15 million.
Yeah. Which
is
crazy.
It's nuts.
And I think it made like well over 100 million or something like that. Like,
it's the highest grossing live action film to come from Toho.
That's awesome.
Like Tokyo Hollywood. Yeah.
And I might have misspoke. That might have just been the VFX budget, but still, I mean, that would be the highest point of the movie anyways. But yeah, it won best VFX that year for like 15 million. And it's just like, Shigamu's. Sorry, I don't, your wife should be pronouncing this. The studio, Shiro Gomez, I believe. But yeah, 4 other big wins, the lowest VFX budget, the lowest costing VFX budget win in the last decade. Like,
wow.
That's crazy. They only spent 15 million, and then just like the that whole idea of like we're paying so much. I think I love Robert Downey Jr., but he was paid $50 million to do the last Avengers movie. And I'm not saying he's not worth it, but the problem is when that's what you have going into the movie, it's like you have to make so much, like you have to do so much just to break even,
Yeah. If that last Avengers movie had, so for reference, Parasite's budget total for the movie was $11.4 million.
Crazy.
But it grossed $262 million worldwide.
Yeah.
Crazy.
If the last Avengers movie had grossed $262 million, what an embarrassment. Like, what a flop.
Yep.
Because they would have spent I don't remember what the budget was, $350 million to just make the movie. But like that low budget, high reward is awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah. And I think, I'm just talking about when we saw it, Heath, I laugh often because my brother was with us too. We had a group of us. But I remember when the movie ended, you talk about the VX and some of that kind of stuff, and it's like, it was kind of obvious they were probably using maybe more practical, like the CGI, I think to your point right away, like it wasn't clean, but it wasn't, I don't think it was distracting by any means. But I just remember the first comment my brother made was almost like disappointment because I think he wanted the current Godzillas that have been coming out, like just like fight, blow it up, crazy visual effects. And this was way more like, it was a movie that had Godzilla in it. And I think that threw him off. Like Godzilla was just one of the characters in a larger movie, in my opinion. And so but to think of like that, to your point, that perspective of like, they probably could have spent $100 million on this and it could have been incredibly clean. I don't know. Some movies have been, hundreds of millions spent and they've not been clean. But I liked that it still felt low budget, almost made it feel more real, I guess, is how I would say it.
Oh, absolutely. I do like the 2016 Godzilla. That was kind of like the American reboot of the whole thing. Mostly because of the director and the creative direction that he chose to go with it. But this is my favorite Godzilla movie. I by no means am I an expert, but this is the most devoted to a Godzilla story that I've ever been. I didn't leave that world that they were creating for me the entire time. And it ended and I was like movie full. Like Thanksgiving dinner, you're chocked full and you have to take a nap. I was like movie satiated. Like, oh my gosh, I have no notes. Like there's nothing that pulled me out.
Yeah.
Godzilla, that's my first experience as Godzilla as a character, like a force almost. Like Godzilla as a monster was just an entity that was washing over the city, the people, the culture. Instead of like, oh, this movie, Godzilla has to fight a giant butterfly. And then the next movie, he has to fight Kong, who now has a mechanical arm for some reason. Like, it just gets really weird and crazy. I didn't know that I wanted -1 so bad, but it like scratched the itch that I needed. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
I really am enjoying both these trains of Godzilla too. Like,
really? Yeah.
I love... Like, yeah, I would agree. I think they started off better, at least. But then I think, can you guys hear my laundry going right now?
No.
Okay, good. I'll go shut that door in a second. But I like how the 2014 Godzilla, Gareth Edwards, definitely started off more in this vein, Godzilla -1, more like Godzilla is a force. And he became like a superhero. And then is definitely now in superhero realm. Like he is the protector of the other bad monsters. But I love that though still. Like I love like, oh man, give me Hollow Earth stuff. Show me crazy stuff. Like it feels like superhero movies that are not superhero movies. You know what I mean? Just like the popcorn flick, just like go have a good time, cheer on Godzilla kind of thing. But I think what's difficult is I think this is the problem the last couple Transformers movies have had is they can't pick if this is a human story like Godzilla -1 or is this a Godzilla / Transformers movie, like all the Godzilla vs. Kong stuff. Like,
Yeah.
they don't know because like you don't care about the humans in the Transformers movie. So like either make me care about the human characters or just don't have them in, you know, like
Right.
like even like the new animated Transformers movie did good because like that's who we care about. Like, yeah, give us Optimus Prime, and you know, I think that's an interesting kind of side there. But yeah, so why don't like I need to go shut my door honestly. So why don't you guys say something interesting?
Oh man,
on my door.
I loved the grounding in the beginning of the film, with Koichi being a soldier, and like maybe you can also speak to this with like your wife being so ingrained for a long portion of her life into the Japanese culture, but being that honor shame driven culture, when you don't follow through on the collective agreement of like, hey, everyone will die for the sake of Japan. And when he lapses on that, to feel his own shame and also to see it on the faces of other people when he does come back, and he doesn't have to tell them like, oh, I was a kamikaze who like didn't follow through. They see him walking into his village, and that lady is just like, hey, you're a piece of trash. Like, I hate you. The fact that you're back, I associate the fact that you're back with our town, our village being destroyed and bombed. And it's not like you feel that how she makes that jump, because it's a very human jump to make, right? Where you're like, while even if you had died, my town would still be bombed, but you represent the failing of Japan in this war, and so I'm going to take it out on you. And that is like, it's so tangible in the beginning of this movie.
No, you're incredibly right. Like that was definitely something that I think was just very much came across, I think, accurately. I know Nicole was pretty she's told me a lot about, the idea of like you take care of your grandparents and you take care of your like family, and there's this whole idea of like everyone's gonna like keep supporting each other, and it's for the best of the family, for the best of the people. So obviously she wasn't around in 1945, but just knowing the history of Japan, like
missed it.
But just the incredible accuracy of like, you're right. There was so much that shame would have been real, and nothing would need to be said. Like I think that's the thing. Like, she didn't need to tell him he's trash. Like that's so obvious by how he won't look anyone in the eye, how he won't like he knows it. Like it's like such a I don't know, we've all probably felt shame, but like that's what it is. And the fact that he froze and had to watch his team die, and it's that whole it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just do think like even how the movie starts with that Godzilla attack and just some of the initial introduction, I think to McKay's point, how quickly grounding the film is, because Godzilla attacks and then we get a bunch of human story. Like he kind of fades to the background, which I appreciated. To again, and even to Heath's point, like I still watch all the new Godzillas and Godzilla vs. Kong, and those are great popcorn flicks, as you said. But I would agree, those ones are easy to like when there's not action to like be on my phone or be talking to someone. Where like this one, it was like as soon as he's back at home, I'm trying to figure out like, okay, did they get bombed? Like I'm like zoned right in. Like, did Godzilla come do this? What is the whole? I think that was really well done.
Yeah, it's just jumping back a little bit, just like the opening, just like the idea of he's a kamikaze pilot, but he doesn't want to die. I feel like that's where this kind of starts off. And like they would even have funerals for kamikaze pilots before they would go. And like,
crazy.
And the lady was like, the lady he bumped into at home, it's like, I thought you were a kamikaze pilot. Like, why you can't be here? Like it was such a certain thing that you're going to go on these suicide missions that like they'd have a funeral before him. So like everybody knew basically as soon as you heard they were a kamikaze pilot, you'd be like, well, good for them, but like goodbye. You know, like there was no like you don't survive being a suicide plane. And I think we see too, because I think it starts off from a place where he's a kamikaze pilot. He doesn't want to die, and I feel like that's not a negative thing. That's like, okay, good. Yeah. And I think they call him coward, but I think he shows cowardice first when he can't shoot Godzilla. I feel like that's his, I don't want to die, but then it's this, I don't even want to attack this thing because I'm going to die. You know, and so it's like the self-preservation thing, which is not a bad thing, I guess, but it's just like showing his, like, he feels even more shame. You know, it's like, I didn't want to sacrifice my life for my country, and now it's, I don't want to sacrifice my life for even these, you know, what was like 10 guys there on the beach.
Yeah. I mean, like, he is already putting that on himself. I'm like, I'm not someone who will die for the collective. As just a general rule, which is something that he struggles with for the entire movie. Like, what will I do for the collective good of Japan? And there's not much that is like, that's a really broad idea. What will I do for the collective of my entire country? There's not much that will boil it down like a literal monster attacking 10 of your fellow service members of your like country military. It's the same principle, just right down. And he comes out of not fulfilling his promise to his country on a grand scale, and also does not fulfill his promise, even as they're begging him, shoot him, like, you got to do it. Yeah. Like he just cannot find it in himself to die for anyone else, which is also a little like hint for what we're going to get into, why he denies the family that is literally living in his house.
Yeah.
I think a big thing too is like, you could really say that this is a character story. This is a human story with Godzilla in it, like we've said. I think you would almost go as far as saying like Godzilla is a metaphor for his cowardice, really.
Absolutely.
That's his force thing, because that's the sign of him. That's remembering when he failed at the island, he failed his country. It's the sign of like his family. Like he can't get the family, maybe even in his own head, until he confronts Godzilla. Like, I don't like to jump around a ton, but like, I feel like we have to kind of talk about that. It's the whole thing of this movie, right? Is he feels like, to set it right, okay, I need to die to save my country.
Yeah.
You know?
He doesn't deserve anything because he's supposed to be dead.
Yeah. It's like, I'm supposed to be dead. And he even has that freak out where he's like, am I in hell? Is this like, did I die on that island and this is my punishment, you know? But yeah, it is such a powerful thing too, to see. Like, I was not expecting the message to be so beautiful, like in this movie, because it's all about starting over, new life, you know, what's worth. And it's cool. So he goes back home, and this girl has found this baby, and they like start living together, like you referenced. And it's so funny because he's like, I don't know who this girl is, and the girl doesn't know who the baby is. She's like, what's the baby's name? It's like, I don't know. And it's like, it's so funny and beautiful that she's just like, it was a baby and I had to pick it up, so that's where we're at. And then they just kind of like sleep at his house. He's like, well, okay. I thought I wrote down, but I can't remember the main character's name.
So Koichi is the guy. Noriko and Akiko. Yep. Noriko is the wife, not the wife, the lady, and Akiko is the child. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wrote that down. Also, the director, Takashi Yakazami, I believe.
Yamazaki.
Takashi, I feel like I know from Naruto. Whenever I hear like a name, like a Japanese name that's in an anime I watch, I'm like, oh no, I got that.
Yep.
Takashi. He also directed The Fighter Pilot and Always. I haven't seen those, but those are higher rated movies. But I thought, so it's cool. So the next thing we have basically is he starts working for the mine removal service for the government. And I do think this is cool because this is basically like, I can't find anything else. And he is risking his life to do this. And I think that's his first thing of, I need to step out and do something dangerous that supports my family. It's not committing suicide. It's hard work that I think is cool, that it actually is showing him step up to be like, oh, there is something that's worth more than my life, is like supporting this, surrogate family.
Yeah. It's kind of like his choice too in being a minesweeper is like he could die and he probably wouldn't know it if he died. So it's kind of like it's almost like an easy way out, like type mentality too. So it's life on the edge, but it's not potentially his choice if he does die. It would just happen.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And a mine is a terrible thing to waste. So
whoa.
It's originally from Men in Tights, right? When he's like, should we kill this mime? And he goes, no, we shouldn't.
No.
A mime is a terrible thing to waste.
What a legendary movie.
It's so good. I feel like I do that all the time. I shot a little skit with Emma. It was so funny because I was like, can you just, we were at the zoo and she saw like this, like the boar, I was sitting over there, the tusked boar. And I was like, can you just yell, look at that wild boar? And I was like, she just yelled that, like, look at that wild boar. And I was like, no, that's a pig. And I pointed at her. It's like, that's a wild boar. That's stupid, but I like it.
Crazy.
I also thought the really cool thing about him being on that boat with the mines is he shows his skill. Like, he knows how to shoot and he can get the mines. It's so important for movies like this. Like, okay, we need a character that needs to rise above stuff, but show us that he has some skill, like that he knows some stuff. Like, why did he become a fighter pilot? Why did, like, I feel like that is so lacking in so many Hollywood movies too, that there's like no redeeming qualities to some characters.
I feel like he's also like pretty, at first he's like pretty bummed. I get like in his mind that he is such a good shot, because if anyone was gonna shoot Godzilla and like something good was gonna come from it, it was probably him. Like of those 10 guys on that little island, it was him. He was the man.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just you're next to the plane, you flew in on the plane, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, you have the skill, you're right. And we're reminded of that in a really awesome way with him being on that mine-sweeping boat of like, no, he's the shot.
Yep. And this is a sign, it was more or less a question of clarification. When he lands on that island, he was not supposed to land on the island to begin with, because he was supposed to already be dead. So he's already shamed when he even lands to begin with. Correct? Is that the vibe you guys got?
That's why when he gets out of the plane, they're like, hey,
that's right. Okay.
Welcome. Why are you here? And he's like, oh, mechanical problems. Like, I couldn't make it to my target, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, the plane kept me from being a kamikaze, right?
From blowing the plane
and they're
up.
like, okay, because nothing's wrong with your plane, dude.
Yep, exactly.
I can't remember
because even him, because I think you're right, even him being such a good shot, again, just proves back to like what McKay said, he could have done it. Like, it wasn't even a skill issue. Like, we're literally talking about the dude who, the redemption arc in this movie is what I love about it, because obviously we're gonna get there, but it's such like it is a beautiful story because of scenes like this right away, where we're not so focused on Godzilla, we're just right in it with this dude and this like family that he's supposed to have. Like this, it's just a reminder of like the low budget didn't take away from a better story being told, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, that's such an interesting idea that he didn't, you don't blame the guy who works on plane engines, who's never shot a gun, that he didn't shoot the monster. Like they even tried, but then like, the responsibility is the one who could have done something, I think that's such a cool thing. So the mechanic, Tachibana, I believe was his name, comes in later in the movie, but then he's like, when he comes up to him, he's like, hey, it's so weird. We can't find anything wrong with your plane. And then the guy like looks all embarrassed, and then you see Tachibana's like anger. Like, are you serious? Because he thought it was maybe hey, what's going on? What is the issue? And then he realizes, you're lying to us. There's nothing wrong with your plane, you know? And at that point, they, you know, deem him a coward. And I think Tachibana is mad at that point, and maybe he's still on the side of, like, you should be dead because you're a kamikaze. But then he doesn't even get that upset until after, like, when everyone's dead. And he's like, you didn't shoot. Like, that's when he's, like, actually, like, in your face, like, you're a failure, you're a coward. Because he's like,
yep,
all my guys are dead. You could have shot something. Arguably, Godzilla was really tiny. Maybe that actually could have even stopped him, you know, like,
yep.
Because the next scene after where we are kind of chronologically, after the boat stuff, like, they're doing these nuke tests, and I don't know if it's just the nuke tests they're doing, or they're trying to, like, the American Godzilla movies make it that they were trying to kill Godzilla. That's what the nuke tests were, but it seems like these are just tests going off. But then Godzilla is drinking in the radiation. That's why he's becoming this mutant that can heal, and he's become giant, you know?
Yep.
But so maybe he could have killed him first thing on that island and not had any issue going forward.
Yeah.
So I heard an interesting take on that. And I'm trying to remember. Okay. It was this movie coming from Toho and not like Hollywood, American Hollywood. The Americans testing the bomb was like better tied into Godzilla, who started as a representation of the bomb itself and after effects of the nuclear weapon that was used on Japan.
Yeah.
And so this being a Toho film and them leaning into that and being like, America had a big part in creating this monster, but not that he represents only an atomic bomb. But Heath, you mentioned it earlier, that Godzilla, who was just alive, like he was just living in the ocean and was affected by nuclear weapons, comes out and attacks and is aggressive and is like all of this despair and sad and aggression just because he's alive, also connects back to the main character. And I thought that was interesting. And that, like, I was listening to the Midnight Boys. I don't know if you ever heard of that podcast, but the Midnight Boys are awesome. And they made that connection of, like, Godzilla is not only a representation of the nuclear warhead that affects Japan, but he's also kind of an embodiment of Koichi, in that they're both alive and don't, like, what they are is not necessarily of their own making, but they've just existed, and now their our essence is the wrong word, but like who they are is just kind of permeating. So like Godzilla is created because he was just around and he was affected by what was happening, and now he's like angry, aggressive, like destroy you guys, humanity has made me this way. And Koichi is the way that he is just because he chose to live.
Yeah, that's so true.
I don't know if that's a big jump, but that connected with me of like both of them, not that they're like the same, but like both of them are just who they are because they were alive. And Godzilla, I don't mistake me, Godzilla is an absolute jerk in this movie. there's no redemption for Godzilla like there is in American Hollywood of like, oh no, he's protecting us from other monsters. Nah, that dude is mad.
Yep.
Wow, is that a Godzilla attack or what? McKay clutching his lightsaber in
someone's rocking the boat
in fear. That's how you do a video cut. That's how you do it right there. Okay, so we have the Godzilla, the main Godzilla, kind of show up like in his fullest form to the ship that's been like basically destroyed. And they're like, "What did this?" And then the deep sea fish pop up, and this happened at the beginning as well. Do you guys know about the deep sea fish? Like, have you heard about that? Like outside of the movie?
I don't think so.
So there's actually, this is legit that there is, well, it's legit lore. There's like local like Japanese folklore that this deep sea, this oar fish, is like a sign of doom impending. So it'll wash up on the shore, and like it's been known to like precede like hurricanes and like tsunamis. Like whenever this is found on the beach, like this is like something bad's happened. And it's cool because that kind of means, right, that like something in the ocean is getting unsettled, something is kind of stirring up. And it's cool to see them use that too, that like Godzilla is ascending. So there's, in this movie universe, like so much radiation is coming off this, you know, that like all these fish are like from the depths are like dying and like popping up all bloated and stuff like that. So
that is really cool. Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was sweet. So then we have the boat that they were harvesting mines on shows up to this destroyed war vessel, and we have Godzilla show up. So what was your first thought, like, Godzilla's here?
I was initially kind of shocked because I didn't put it together right away that when we first see Godzilla, that wasn't like full bore Godzilla. So when he was like bigger, I was like, oh, sick, he's bigger. like that helped me kind of connect of like, A, it just looked epic, but B, of like, oh, okay, so he's been around, but he's like obviously become way more of a thing now, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like the shots. Oh, I'm sorry, Heath.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I feel like the shots on the island where he is like faced with that, do I shoot Godzilla or try and get to the airplane or not, made him feel really big and tall because they were like, from our perspective, like standing 5 or 6 feet off the ground, and he walks past you and like, whoa, or you're like hiding under something and he walks past you, so you're like, yeah, Godzilla's huge.
Yep.
And then to see him actually like full size, you're like, oh no. It was a really cool jump.
Was it 97 when that Godzilla movie came out? I feel like when he attacks the island, he looks like 100%. That Godzilla. And then when you see him, come out of the water, the jaw scene, all that kind of stuff, you're like, oh, that's...
98?
Is it 98? That's the
the Godzilla with Matthew Broderick.
Yes.
Yeah.
What a classic.
With Professor Gadget. Inspector Gadget, not Professor Gadget.
Yeah. I feel like that's what the essentially baby Godzilla looked like, was that rendition of Godzilla. And then when you see him finally show up, he's like his full form. He's gotten rid of the baby fat and it's all muscle, and he's like it's a way different, I think you're right, Andrew, like a way different perspective all of a sudden of like, oh, okay, this is the monster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's so fast. He's like, when he gets on that beach, he's very like T-Rex like, but very fast, like almost more like raptor, just like fast dinosaur. And then when he shows up in his full form, it's like those like just slow steps, like those very like methodical kind of attacks, because he's so huge. But yeah, so looked up that. Let's talk about Godzilla 98 real quick. Because I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there was a reel going around that was like the amount of like media push for Godzilla 98 was insane. And it was just showing all like the cups, like the toy aisles, like the kiosks, like like McKay, you were probably a little young for this.
I was 1 year old.
Yeah,
maximum.
So, but I just like, Clark, do you remember this? Like, you remember?
I was 8. I remember seeing it in the drive-in. Like, it was a big deal to go to the drive-in and see it. Like, I remember all the toys we had. My brother and I had one of the like squishy Godzilla feeling like toys from then. Yeah, it was huge. It was like, the reawakening of Godzilla is how they were treating it.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, they were acting like this was a brand new, like maybe the first American Godzilla movie, but this was definitely treated as a big blockbuster Godzilla movie, like the Avengers of the summer.
Yeah.
And it's funny looking it up. It's got like a 5.4 out of 10.
Yeah, I watched it within the last year, and it's trashy.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
But I
So
remember
the
loving it when I was
Godzilla
a
from
kid.
'98. Godzilla from '98 is the first Hollywood Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
So that's why they were like, we are going full bore into this.
And that's why they waited 16 more years to try another one.
Yeah.
Because they're like, let's dial it back.
Like action star Matthew Broderick.
You know,
I forgot that in that movie, it's a mutated iguana.
yeah.
That's like, it's not even like a cool deep sea monster that we've just never discovered, like in -1. It's just an iguana.
Just a radiated iguana. And that's the classic. I actually had it on my phone for the longest time, is the old man who has like the lighter at the very beginning. He's like, Godzilla. Godzilla. He's like making this, and like the camera like zooms in on him because he's just like, they've just discovered that this Godzilla type creature. And that's where you kind of hear him say it for the first time. But that's that movie, which is just classic.
You know,
Oh, so funny.
another thing with people saying Godzilla, that it's such a ridiculous name. If you like, it's like Godzilla. You know, that's like like Gojira, I believe, is the original, like how you would say it. So the American Godzilla, they always make it such a huge point, right? Like the old man in '98. Even in 2014, the guy from The Last Samurai is like, the locals call him Godzilla. You know, like they make it like such a big like pull in. It's like their I Am Batman moment,
Yes.
right? It is huge. Like you cannot say this wrong. Like whip pan in, Godzilla. You know, but which what I loved about -1 is they don't even mess with that. They're like, it's in a conversation. It'd be like me and you talking, and then they just like the locals call him Godzilla, and it's this thing. Like they're not treating it like a Godzilla, you know, like it's just part of the conversation.
Yeah. Like a title reveal.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, like, have you guys watched Arrested Development?
Mm-hmm.
When somebody says, oh yeah, it puts them in a constant state of arrested development, and then the narrator goes, hey, that's the name of the show. Yeah.
It's like the -1 doesn't make him sound as mythical.
Yeah.
It like like I think you said it, Michaela. He treats it like the deep sea creature, like as kind of like a nasty thing compared to, I think the old school is like, this is this mythical being. Godzilla, especially the newer Godzillas, I feel like really put him in that frame of like, with Hollow Earth and all that stuff. Like he's been around for centuries and all that. Where, it's just a monster. At -1.
Especially with that, what was that TV show, Monarch?
Yeah.
Right? With the dad from Sky High.
That's not what he's known for.
Kurt Russell. That's his best
Kurt
movie.
Russell?
Kurt Russell.
For Sky High? What's that actor from Sky High?
I think that Kurt Russell's first movie was Sky High, actually. I don't think he was an actor before that.
I'll die on this hill. Sky High, his best performance, best well known for. You ask anybody, Kurt Russell, you'd be like, you mean the Sky High dad?
Yeah, you mean the dad from Sky High?
It hurts me so.
Anyway, Monarch is a really great show, and I think one of the better Godzilla installments of the Hollywood like canon currently, because they latch onto, they don't just like dabble with it's a mythic creature, like he's from Hollow Earth, I guess. Like they give you lore and like actual plot of like what that looks like to interact with like the other dimension or whatever. So it's very entertaining. Also, just great to see Kurt Russell in a movie, because he hasn't been in one since Sky High either. So
I'm gonna kill you.
Just quit acting.
You call him one and done because he just did.
Yeah,
Sky High.
He's still riding the paycheck from Sky High.
It's like the residuals on Sky High has to be.
Oh man,
Sky High. That's nuts.
Oh yeah.
Is it
2005?
Is it the oh my gosh, I don't want to reduce this actress to this statement, but it's Obi-Wan's wife.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Millie Bobby Brown?
No.
What? She's like 20. No, it's She says he's super strong.
Scott
Really hits the G. Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Yes.
She did marry Ewan McGregor, and they have a child, I think.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah. Yeah, good for her, honestly, to marry Ewan McGregor.
Yeah. I do love, I don't like to get into like Hollywood lore too much, but he got a divorce and then he has a TV show where he rides a motorcycle around the country, like right after it. I'm like, I guess that is how you recover from a divorce.
A divorced dad.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to get on a motorcycle and ride.
Yep.
But hey, seems to be doing good. So good for him.
Man. So
anyways. Okay. So then Jaws, oh my gosh. Well, I gave away what I was going to say. Godzilla shows up and it's a very Jaws-like scene because it's like they have the mines and they're trying to kill Godzilla, and then like they have hope because they were told this declassed military ship, the Takao, is coming. So like we just have to hold it up. And I don't know if you guys noticed. I didn't notice this until the second one because they always go out in two ships to get these mines because they have the ropes between them.
Yeah.
So they have another buddy ship there that we don't like go to any of those characters, but they get destroyed by Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys notice that? I didn't notice that the first time.
Dude, pretty lucky. I remember thinking that. I'm like, oh, our main character just happened to be out in the right boat.
Right.
Whoops.
It's almost like he had some plot armor. Interesting.
But also it probably adds to his guilt. Like,
oh, sure.
He feels pretty guilty being a survivor to begin with when he shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
So then, like, oh, I'm just working this job. And then his coworkers die again. And he's like, okay.
Yeah. Yep. And I do love, once again, it shows the main character, he is skilled at something. Like, they have a good plan. They're like, let's release these mines. And one goes into the mouth, doesn't blow up, and the guy shoots it. So he's using his skill. And I love, too, that, like, all these scenes, because this is a well-written movie, like, which I feel like I have to keep emphasizing because that's not what we're getting.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's like, oh, the scene meant something because they're testing to see, like, oh, he regenerates, so we're gonna have to do some mega damage to him, to get him actually destroyed. Like, I don't know, I appreciate that. This isn't so many scenes in movies I feel like could just be cut out because it actually doesn't even add anything to the plot. Right. You know, there's no point.
Yep. As far as like the Jaws references in this movie, I think if you're gonna make a monster movie, you have to take a page or two from Jaws as one of the best monster movies ever because of the point of view. Like, Jaws is so scary, or what would you say? I think it was scary for the time, but it's so captivating now because you never see Bruce's point of view. It's always just the people, and the water is mysterious and dark and scary. And that is what is lost on most of the monster movies today, is the camera pans up to behind the monster's head and you see essentially their point of view, or you have out of character knowledge, like you have out of human character knowledge. Mm-hmm. You see the monster off on their own, like King Kong on his Skull Island, like, oh, he has feelings, you know? Yep. And that I feel like pulls away from the monster movie aspect, and this movie did it super well. Like, even there's a shark movie called From Under Paris, I think, and it's a great shark movie, but they give the literal POV swimming through the water of the sharks as they're going to attack people, and that just takes me out of it. I'm like, nah, just let me like sit in the anticipation, and -1 does that super, super well.
Wow. Yeah, that I never thought about that, but we get so many of those brooding monster shots in everything, and it's like,
yeah,
why are we like? And it's also like, okay, but who are we following here? Because you could almost argue like we are an audience watching a monster movie, not like, oh, we're following this human character, this human story.
Yes, exactly. That's why Cloverfield was so good, because it's all found footage on the floor, like on the ground level. That's why the first Pacific Rim was way better than the others.
Oh, I love Pacific
because
Rim.
First Pacific Rim was, if you see a shot, like a high shot of those mechs, you're on a rooftop and they make sure that you've planted there, and the camera pans as far as a person can turn to see the action. It's very street level. And then the second, and probably if there's a third one, the camera's swinging, flying around faster than a helicopter can go. And so it just takes you out of it. You're like, am I in a video game? Like, how am I seeing this?
Well, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I think with the newer Godzillas, what I liked about Minus 1 2, though, is they do so much with Godzilla in the water, where he doesn't come out of, like, which makes it feel way, like, even how they get to eventually, like, to figure out how to defeat him feels way more complicated, and way, like, he's, like, playing home field advantage compared to, like, yo, let me come out, let me show my full self. You know what I mean? We don't, obviously we see him a little bit, but the majority of the time he's in the water, which just makes it that much easier to disappear and utilize the scariness and the vastness of the ocean itself, which I think is a really cool aspect of it.
I think it's so fun that, like, though it looks amazing. Like, I think a lot of people talk about Godzilla himself, but just like the shots in this movie, the city, like the ocean, like the boats, they're just like zooming in, like coming into this boat where our main characters are, and it's just a beautiful shot. You know, I just think I do love that too, because like once again, sometimes movies, I think Godzilla, like even like the 2014, like there's beautiful shots in there too. But I love it when people are like, hey, let's remember to make this a movie, like a visual spectacle. Like, this looks amazing. And they're not relying just on Godzilla to do that. Because I think if I had a critique of Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, it's like, it's all about Godzilla. He's the main character, really. But I love that too. So I like that we get both. We talked about that before, you know, just how it's kind of more of the popcorn flick version. This is kind of more of the character driven. So then the Takao shows up, and we have our first atomic breath. So these are infamous for these movies. What were you guys like? What did you think of this atomic breath?
Clark, you can go first.
It was epic. Like, it felt, I think, I would say, because I've also watched some of the newer Godzillas more recently too, and I would say it felt special, if that sounds like he can't just do it. Like, it felt like it meant something that he did it, which made it seem even more powerful, if that makes sense. Like, it was very much like just epic in its own right, and I feel like it didn't feel like he could just like turn around and just rip it off again. Like, it was something that's like, wow, he like utilized that to its fullest potential. I wonder what's going to happen next. Obviously, the movie progresses, but it was just like a cool, it's just epic.
Yeah, man, the build up from like the tail all the way up his back, and it's like I could feel like every spike that went shunk, like, and stuck out and was like charged. It felt like he was loading a gun. Like, okay, this is a giant cannon that takes 30 seconds to load up. But man, is it going to be worth it? Like, and then that brief. It's like a full second of complete silence as he's like, I love that he sucked air in. Like, you can see the air go and like go into his mouth, and then just like, oh, it's honestly, as far as movie sounds go, it's up there, right next to like Jango Fett's sonic like bomb. That's wow. Like, that is such a satisfying atomic breath sound. It's so good.
Yes.
We could talk a whole episode about that Jango Fett sound effect. I've heard people like on Rebel Force Radio, Jimmy Mack hates that sound. He thinks it's just like an abrasive, like hitting all the keys in the piano. But I love it because it's the absence of sound, and then the destructive wave. Like, I love it. It sounds so cool. Did you guys? I think this is the only. I mean, I've only really seen the American Godzilla movies, some of the anime, and this one. So I haven't seen like original live action like Japanese films. But this is the only one I've seen where like Godzilla's spines raise as the atomic breath is charging. Very much like, just like showing that atomic power. And I also feel like with this one, it feels like he's concentrating the radiation and then releasing it. It doesn't feel like it's like a laser gun. Like, I would say this is probably taking away something from him too. This is not a shooting a gun. This is like a huge destructive force.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, atomic breath every time. First in the Gareth Edwards one, I was just like, I remember the theater just like cheered, and he's like,
yeah,
like he opens the other monster like by the jaws,
and just
atomic breath right out there.
I remember that.
As a bird feeding its chick, here's your dinner. Okay, so then our main character gets wounded and wakes up in the hospital. I feel like this is a very natural scene, but that really is one of my pet peeves in movies, is like how often, like, I mean, Harry Potter, like how many times in those movies does he pass out or get knocked out? And that's just a way to transition the scene, So I am like, oh, do we have to do that? But it did feel natural to me in this movie, so I'll allow it. But then we have our first instance of that they express that the government is going to repress this information. We're not going to widespread this, and information control is like a big theme right here, especially.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, we are in a culture that's so like immediately anti that. Like, oh, we would never do that. I would never. No, not a chance. And like, you consider, like, I'm not a history teacher, but enjoying history, I know that like the United States suppressed the progress of the war in the Pacific during World War II because they knew that they weren't doing well and that the American people wouldn't respond positively if they knew that fight wasn't going super well, because it was like really, really tough, like to do all that island hopping. And so that was an interesting part of the movie for me. I feel like as an American, I have that gut reaction of like, oh, this is awful. I can't believe a government would do that. But it's very big, but it's very government of them.
Yeah. Thank God our country doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It reminds me a lot of the book Last Train to Hiroshima, which is the movie that I guess Kurt Cameron, that James Cameron has said he's going to make here in a few years. But it's about the guy who survived the initial atomic bomb, got on a train, got to Nagasaki and had the second bomb, and he survived that bomb too.
Wow.
But the author who wrote it, he just interviewed person after person and all these people, and the book is a really hard read or listen because it's just nonstop graphic of what people experienced. Yeah. And the issue with the book was it actually got pulped when it came out in 2010 because the backlash towards it was so like, this can't be true. I can't believe we did that. Very much out of like almost like this idea of like, wow, that was the action. Like I feel like Oppenheimer and some of these movies, we just know we dropped a bomb. We don't know what actually was the fallout from the bomb.
Yeah.
And what people did in response and how like lives were so drastically changed. It's an incredible book. I'm really excited to see what Cameron does with it when he makes it a movie. I guess he promised the dude that the book's about on his deathbed that he would make a movie and tell the people.
Wow.
But yeah, to that point, like that repression of like, it's like information like this is what actually helps us actually know the repercussions of our choices. And that's just not, we're just told, yeah, we dropped a bomb and it helped us win. We're like, okay, cool. That's America. And there's just like, yes, but there's other side to it.
Man, I feel like it also pushes Koichi, like when he realizes that, like, okay, government is just going to suppress and what happens, and they're just going to cover it up and do whatever they want. That pushes Koichi further into like, I'm not willing to die for this government that seems detached to me. So I'm not going to fulfill that job. And I'm suffering from the shame of that. And then to realize that the government isn't actually even going to help him and his village, like his city, his neighbors, when they're in like danger from a legit monster and they're just going to like lie about it. That just further distances himself and pushes him into like the next like full stage of the movie, which is like they take it into their own hands.
Yeah.
And it's eventually it becomes like all of the ex-military people from Japan have to like step up again, but not for their country, not for the government, but for their neighbors. And that makes a really big difference.
Yeah, 100%.
I'd love to talk a lot about that scene too once we get a little further into the movie, but remind me, because we have to, like, that's like such an important part of that. Because yeah, that is such a cool thing. I love that. But then, so before we get there, we have this whole attack on Ginza. So once again, beautiful shot. Godzilla swimming under the boat is such a cool thing. So he's coming in. And then they have like Godzilla attack the city, the classic thing. And they have like the music, the real, like, in my opinion, it's like, I don't want to say cheesy, but it's just like, it's the obvious choice, I guess, but it's awesome. It's like the da 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 da, you know, and that might even be from the original Godzilla. Unfortunately, I don't know, but it's just like, it feels like that classic, you know, Luke Skywalker jumps in the X-wing, da 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 da. You know, it's just like, but it's just it's like that classic. Love the tanks. That felt straight out of like a 50s, 60s black and white sci-fi. You know, like we got the city, like this monster's coming through. We got to get the tanks involved. And Clark, you might identify with this because we live in the same town. I don't know if this was like this for you, but so maybe it's just for me, but for cable, Cartoon Network was channel 41. Was that the same for you? Okay.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid,
that's
like,
a flashback.
Right? Channel 40. I remember, so like when I was like 3 or 4 years old, I remember trying to memorize which numbers were the cartoon channel so I could turn it on. I was like 41. Okay. So I was a little kid, like I said, 3 or 4, and I accidentally hit channel 14 instead of 41. And it went to a sci-fi channel that was a total black and white monster movie. And like this guy runs out and like gets like squished. Like it was TV violence, but it was still more than my 3 or 4-year-old eyes had ever seen. And my mom comes out, it's like, what are you watching? And I'm like, a cartoon channel. She's like watching people get murdered. And I'm like, I was scared too. I was like,
It's just Ed, Ed, and Eddie.
Yeah. It's too violent.
Oh, that is so true, though.
I love the scene too in this movie right here, the attack in Ginza, that they have the reporters that are like live broadcasting on the roof.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, that just, I loved how real that was. Like, we're trying to get this shot, and then that building gets like just taken out, you know? And I thought that was such a cool inclusion they had there.
Yeah.
It feels very Pearl Harbor, because like the footage that we have of Pearl Harbor was just it's like some guys doing like a documentary about Pearl Harbor as a base, and they're just like kind of going around, and then the attack started, and they were like, film it, dude, like, I don't know, capture it.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's nuts.
Yeah.
And this is where Noriko, quote unquote, dies, right? She just gets blown away by the debris.
Man.
I just said bye, Noriko. Which I do love how they did this. Basically, what an amazing scene where the blast is coming. They're kind of right outside an alley, and she pushes him in, and then the blast comes, and she's just blown away. And then he comes out, and there's just nothing. And like, I love the way he kind of portrays it, because he's walking out, and it's just shock. Because how would you, like, if you come out and someone you knew was in a car that was blown up, but there was nothing left. It was just like a black, like, smear of soot on the road. You wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, they're gone. You'd look around for the car. Like, wait, where is, like, it's like, it takes him a while to process, which I think is just played so well. And then obviously he grieves, as we do too, because Noriko was the girl that he couldn't commit to, and he's like, it's basically my wife, but
I'm so glad that all of his like buddies were like, wait, you're not married to her? what is wrong with
Yeah.
you, you stupid idiot? What are you doing?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not worthy. I don't deserve her. And they're like, dude, she literally loves you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Okay.
I almost turned on Koichi
You're like, that's it.
after that. I was like, when he was talking bad, like, I can't do it. I can't be with her.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. I was like, dude, I freaking hate you. You're the worst.
I mean, he is that guy too that like, he makes all the wrong decisions
Absolutely.
until
He's the most Peter Parker you've ever seen.
yeah. Peter Piker? Peter Parker?
picked a pickle pepper.
Peter Parker picked a pack of Peter Parker. All right. Yeah, so I think it's cool to see because that's like his whole arc is he makes so many choices out of cowardice, and then he makes that big decision at the end that is him saying, "I'm not going to be a coward. I'm going to do that." But I would say that last bad decision is still the coward decision, right? Because he's like,
What do you mean? Which one are you talking about?
so maybe we'll get there. We'll get there because I want to talk. Oh,
I mean, we can go right there, man.
well, we're close. We're real close. So, okay. So yes, 30,000 people died in Ginza. And then he goes back to Akiko and she's like, where's mom? And man, I felt that. I don't know if you guys did. I felt it right in the dad feels. And just like,
yeah.
I haven't watched, well, I think my daughter was born when we first, she must have been when we watched this movie. Because I'm like, the idea of having to console your child because their mom died, I was like, well, I hope I never have to do that. My word.
Dude.
Like,
Yeah, seriously.
Yep. Now I'm pretty sure your daughter was wrong because I feel like we made eye contact in that moment in the theater and we both looked away because it was like,
probably like make a joke. Somebody say something funny. Start poking Jared. Come on.
yeah, like,
Come on, funny. Come on, funny man.
I'm gonna have to forget this real quick.
so true.
Do you guys see my vest? It heats. It heats up when I push the button. So
Hey, look at this. Not the movie.
I
Not emotional right now.
I just bought my Milwaukee heat up vest. It's got the battery in it that you can push the button. It heats up. So I was very psyched about it. So that's why. The things we remember about Godzilla. So then basically that's when our main character Koichi says, let's kill Godzilla. We got to do this. So that's when they kind of move into this whole the hearing, which we were alluding to before, that they're like, we got to do something. So they say the Japanese government is like basically had suppressed this. Now they're like, we don't know what to do. And they're like, he's going to attack again, like soon. We got to figure this out. And then they can't have the Americans can't help because of the complications with Russia. That's basically their excuse too, that they can't help. And so basically their post-war Japan is like, we have nothing. The government's like, the military is like, there's nothing left. We have nothing to fight this. So then we have this, like, the U.S. can't help. So then they have this plan to sink Godzilla.
I honestly loved that. Like, I thought that was so cool and creative.
Yeah.
And I genuinely, like, when someone hatches a plan to kill the monster and it's the first plan that they have, you know it's not going to work. But I was truly rooting for them. I was like, please, please, please. That's so cool. Like, like, he thought of such a good plan. What a smart boy. Good job.
My baby boy.
Yeah, my man's so smart.
Like, yeah, the idea of using the power of the ocean, like, to freeze or to compress Godzilla is like, we'll sink him and like,
and we'll give him the bends.
Yeah.
And he'll get sick and die.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, yeah, the ocean, we talk about like how little of percentage we've discovered of the ocean. It's like, it is a terrifying place. Like, there's a Godzilla-esque monster down there just chilling.
Why not?
You know?
Yeah, why not?
It's crazy. Like, they just discovered like a giant squid like not too long ago. They're like, well, they don't get that big. It's like, oh yeah, there are giant squid. Like, we've heard in folklore. They're just really deep under the ocean. It's like, cool. So what did you guys think? I've got some stuff to say about this hearing, because this is when they're like given a choice to basically like, why, you know, like, do you have anything? I don't want to steal what you guys were saying. So do you have anything to say about kind of just like this?
The only thing I was going to say is that this is the turning point where all of these like veterans and people who have given so much for a country that keeps secrets from them and lies to them all the time, these people will pick up their sword, metaphorical sword. They'll pick up the fight again, but not for that ambiguous big concept country, but for their city, for their fellow people. And that is just so moving. It makes it really relatable. And I just love that is the thing that gets Koichi like the kick in the pants. Like that makes him like, okay, I can overcome this cowardice, and at this point I've lost the woman that I loved because I was too afraid to accept her. I didn't think I was worthy of it. And now I need to fight for the people that are still here, no matter what happens. It's just really good, compelling, like last act of the movie. So
yeah.
Yes. I really appreciated there was no random individual with a lot of money being like, wait, I can use this creature for my own bidding. Like, I just love that it was like, hey, this sucks and it's killing a lot of people. Let's kill it. Like, yeah, just it was refreshing. That there was no like arch billionaire nemesis in the background. Yeah. It was just like, no, like this is a bad thing. Let's go take care of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like I'd never considered like, oh, what if the government was like, no, we have to quarantine it and protect it. That's super Hollywood American.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very alien. Like, let's take the creature back.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Applications. It's got acid for blood, man. What do you expect us to do? So, man, this scene also really gets me to when they're all with these people and they're asking them to help, like the local sailors. Like they were all conscripted, I'm assuming, and they're like, and one of the guys like, not again. Why do I have to do this again? I survived the war.
Yeah.
Lost everything. We lost the war, most of them lost their homes, family, whatever. And then they're like, why do I have to be the one to do this? And they're just like, no one else. It's like, you're the only ones here. But they still give them a choice, which I think is so huge because like they've not had a choice before.
Yeah,
it's like, and then what I love too is like when they're leaving, those people are like, I can't do this, I'm leaving. They're like, it's okay. Like they're not like, you're cowards, and like, this happens a little bit later at the last mission prep scene. But I just want to make sure we say it because I don't want to forget. Is the main scientist is like, this country has treated life far too cheaply before with suicide bombers, kamikaze pilots. Like it's not valuing life, and I feel like that's our main character's whole thing. Is he's like the value of life, and he's like, he was scared, but then, well, I don't want to give away the ending, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
You little tease.
What can I say? Oh man! So then they find the plane, and I feel like I understood this a lot more, even if maybe I missed it the first time, but just like that Tachibana is the guy they go to get to fix the plane for the ending kind of attack, and he's the guy from the original island. He was the only other survivor. Right. And then he asks him, he's like, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's why he has to like, was it like insult him or do something that like really ticked him off to get him to even come and confront Koichi? He had to like insult him so bad and be like, I knew you were going to come only if I told you whatever. Like, I forget what it was.
It was like, write him like a letter, right? Doesn't he write him like a letter or something like that? And then he's like, okay,
like, I think it was basically like the attack on the original island was Tachibana's neglect, like basically blaming him for being an inept manager. That's why. And he's like, are you serious? And like throws all these lists. Which I love. His plan was like, this is his mom's house, we don't know where he is. So we just started mailing him all over that area to where like his mom lived or he lived at one point. And then he comes back, he has like 17 letters. Like, what are you doing?
They're like, hey everyone, Tachibana sucks.
Yeah.
Like, all right, get your boy. You're gonna throw
we didn't say, but Clarky was late to the pod tonight, so that's what we had to do. We had to text like his wife,
He started sending me
his son, and
all my important people in my life.
Yep.
Text your mom. It's like, hey, Andrew Clark sucks. I say Andrew Clark because we got two Andrews, but I think your mom would know who I'm talking about if I said.
Who is this Andrew Clark he speaks of?
Andrew Bird Clark. I'm familiar. So then we have the technician, the mechanic was like, "Are you trying to die? Is that the plan here?" And he's like, "We need to set that up." And I think he's kind of like, he's not saying yes, I want to die, but he's setting himself up to die. Like I don't think he's advertising it. He's like, no, the gun, we can lure the Godzilla out to this trench with it, and then I've got guns on the plane that I can do some damage. And then he's like, but as a fail-safe, we have this bomb loaded in the plane that I can kill it, basically.
Like, was it Tachibana that like installed the eject or like showed him like, and just so you know, this lever is to eject? And I thought that was interesting, that Tachibana being so connected to the original, like in the beginning of the film, with the shame that Koichi feels for not following through with the kamikaze stuff. Tachibana is like, here's this for when you need it. Like, I'm gonna man to man, I'm just gonna tell you the information, and I'm not gonna like beg you to sway one way or the other, but this is what you got. Like, I thought that was really good.
Yeah, he installs it because that should be, you'd think too, that might be the character that's like, yeah, you should die for your country, and people have approached him before and said like, you were a kamikaze, how are you here, and to give him that chance of like, it's okay, like I want you to live. And I think that's the whole thing too, like it's a choice. It's not saying that you might not die. It did remind me a lot of the shot when he's flying the plane of Independence Day with hello boys, I'm back. Because like but I love that shot too. But then it's just he didn't have a choice. They didn't have any ammo left. They're like, how do we destroy the ship? But like this one is like, he definitely had a choice. It's like, we can set you up so you can do this. They have a chance, and I think that's what they said too in this whole meeting, because it's like, we're a bunch of like old ex-Navy guys and like all these random people, like, why are we even doing this against Godzilla? But then they're like, because we have a chance. Like we're going for that chance. And same thing with the ejector seat. It's like, it's a chance, which is something as a kamikaze, it's like, man, you get emotional thinking about that. Like those pilots that were like, this is how you serve your country, and there's no chance. You have a funeral beforehand, like we talked about. Like there is zero chance you're surviving this, And like, true. What a blessing that would be to hear that. It's like, there's a chance you might live. It's like, wow.
Yeah. You said it earlier, like it's finally pointing to the value of life. Like where so much of it was not framed that way. And so now it's like even both of them are like, there's like a lot of redemption played up into this. And now it's like, okay, yeah, that idea of having a chance or having a choice of you can survive this, and there's like honor that comes with you surviving now too, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. It reminded me a lot of, surprise, surprise, Tolkien's work of the elves are described to be fighting the long defeat because they're slowly waning in power and strength, and like they will eventually have to leave Middle Earth. They're fighting the enemy that they cannot defeat, and so they're fighting this long defeat, which is like, why are you still fighting? It's like, because it's what we have to do. And that resolve, when they're like, we don't even have the military. Like, what are we fighting against this thing that could probably crush our entire military? It's like, because we have to. Like, this is like, that resolve, I think, is so cool. So yeah, then he shows them the safety for the bomb, and then he shows them the ejector seat, which it kind of plays a little bait and switch, which is like he's like, hey, before you go, and then the scene switches, and we're like, then we see later that was the ejector seat.
Yeah.
So then we get the land fight, which this feels like such a also classic like monster scene, just like King Kong, with the planes flying around, or like obviously like other Godzilla, just like flying around, trying to like get his attention to get him to go to the trench.
Yep.
It's so funny. Every time, as I've seen this movie twice now, and every time when they describe what they're trying to do, I'm trying so hard to follow. And like, I get the vague idea of it, right? But I'm like, okay, so they're trying to rapidly sink it and then bring it up really fast to give it the bends, like you said. Is that
no? It's like the rapidly sink it, and if it goes deep enough, then the pressure of the ocean will crush it, right, and just kill it down there. But if that fails, then the plan B is if Godzilla gets free, or that crushing it doesn't work, and it comes up, that it would ascend so rapidly that it would secondary plan essentially like combust when it got to the surface because of the pressure differential and the quick change.
Yeah.
So there's kind of two, like if we sink it so low, that could kill it, and if it doesn't, then on the rise up, that could kill it too. So it's kind of a 2-for-1.
Yep.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, it's sweet. I like that idea too of like them trying to think of cool ideas, because it seems like in so many movies, this type of movie especially, it's like, okay, how do we kill this monster? Like, shoot it with a gun. It's like, it doesn't work. Shoot it with a bigger gun. Like, okay, like, and I like that idea of like, it's not even like destroy it with fire, destroy it with more fire. It's like, okay, sink it rapidly to crush it, and if that doesn't work, bring it up, give it the bends, then it'll weaken it, and then
yeah. There's no like, I think we said that, like, there's no government involvement, so like there's no nukes on hand to be like, let's nuke it as well. Like it's like, no, we got to get creative, which is so good.
Yeah. McKay, what should we do from orbit? What should we do?
Nuke it from orbit?
Yeah. I say we nuke it from orbit. Little aliens there.
Oh, that's funny.
And then what's really cool too is the atomic breath shows up again. Once again, it's just like so cool. It looks visually amazing. But then all of the fishing boats show up to help raise Godzilla.
Oh yeah,
which is
the kid that they wouldn't let go on the mission. They're like, no.
Yeah, very Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you guys watch, when you rewatched, did you do dubbed or like subtitled?
I usually only do subs, yeah.
I did the original.
I'm pretty pretentious like that.
Yeah. Well, I think I did the second time I watched the English dub. And I feel like I struggle with the English dub because I think it makes it it takes you out of it a bit, because it just doesn't feel quite, they're never the same energy. It's like the person's animated like this, and you're hearing that like it's like it's not quite right. And then obviously if you watch the mouths, it doesn't match up.
Yep.
But I did feel like the English actors did a good job. Like I feel like it wasn't bad in my opinion, and it was just
cool.
It's hard for me to take notes and read subtitles at the same time. So I was like, I need to have an audio. But I was just curious if you guys say that. But we talked a little bit about it, but I really want to watch the black and white version of this movie too. I think that'd be really sweet. Okay, so then all the ships show up, and it's like once again everyone has that choice to help, and it's the people, and people matter. And I think that's one of the themes. I would say that like life is the theme. Like,
yep.
I don't know. What would you guys
100%.
think? What is the major theme to you?
I'm a sucker for redemption stories, so that's what stuck out to me. Like that it's the classic zero to hero. Like life's over, nothing to live for, to get everything to live for, and the repairing of relationships. Like even the former military coming back and fight for something that has more meaning than this ambiguous government over thing. Like just everything was pointing back to like that redemption of good. So that to me was the big over. It got me teary eyed at the end. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I think that Heath, I would agree with you. Also, Clark, I agree with you. But that like life is the overarching theme in the sense that like it's when someone asks you like I've mentioned a couple times, like big ambiguous, big brother, big government, whatever, like tells you have to die for your countrymen. That's one thing. But then for you to have the choice, like in that meeting, like all those people could leave, but if you stayed, you're choosing life and you're choosing to live and use your life for very specific people, for your neighbors, for your friends, and for your family. So even in the case of like someone who might have like died in that last fight against Godzilla, they still chose life for the people around them. Like they used their life for something that was like worthwhile to them. So even in that context, like, well, how's it about life when like people die? Like, well, they got the choice. Like, I think that's a big thing. But for Koichi, definitely, it's like, how do I not shy away from the life that I should have lost or should have given up? So
I think it's really cool too that there is a lot of deaths in this movie, but they value death, because I feel like a lot of these ending climactic battles will end with like, oh man, and then this ship got taken out and this guy had to sacrifice himself, and like you've got like your main characters dying off, but no main characters die. The final ship, when like the atomic breath was about to get them, that's when like they were saved by the plane, I think. Was that time? Is that the point what I was thinking about? Like they're all like literally like some guys are like closing their eyes, like this is it, kind of thing. Yep. And once again, it's just like people matter, and I think what a cool message for the movie, because I know a ton of people, like 30,000 people died in Ginza, but the fact that they brought it back to this and were like, no, people like fight to live, and I thought that was so cool that they're like, we're not even gonna kill off characters because we're fighting to live. That's cool. What we're doing, you know. And then so we've got Noriko popping up again at the end.
My girl. Wow.
I don't know about you guys, but my first thought is like, this is cheesy. No, I love this. Like,
yes. That was exactly what happened in my brain. Those were word for word. I was like, oh, why did they have to? No, I love it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It I think that was one instance where like it seemed so certain. Like some people, you die in a movie, someone dies and you don't see the body and you're like, I don't know. But it seemed more respectful that you didn't like the atomic breath shockwave would like just wipe her away. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that makes sense. An atomic bomb, yeah, there's nothing left. Like you were so certain that she wasn't around anymore, and then she comes back, and you're like,
yeah. Which then it's like, wow, that happens all the time. They'll like, because I think this is only a span of a couple days, you know, and so like even maybe longer. But yeah, if she was like thrown into rubble, which is very common, like these big disasters that like it took you a while to find her, or if she's like passed, like knocked out or something, you know, it seems very logical that like, well, yeah, she was gone, but. Like they tell those crazy stories, like tornadoes come through and people are ripped from their homes and like they fly like miles, but they like survive. It's nuts. You think like you flew 10 miles in the air and somehow you landed in a tree and didn't die. Like it's nuts. I love the ending line for Noriko. You remember what she says? What would you do if I said it in perfect Japanese?
Oh, I would cry.
It's like, I should have prepared that. That would have been cool. She asks him if his war is over.
Oh, yes. That's right.
Such a cool line, because the whole idea is he's been holding on to this guilt. That's why he can't marry her. That's why he can't adopt Akiko. You know, it's like his war is not over. That he never got home. He never came home, really.
Yeah.
And he learned to let go of fear. I think that was a huge thing too, where he was every decision. Oh yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. Is every decision he makes is out of like fear. He doesn't want to die as a kamikaze pilot, which I agree with. Then he goes home, and then he like out of fear he doesn't marry and adopt because he's afraid to lose again. And then almost out of like, almost as a fear of living for more or being without his guilt, he's like, I'm going to go finally kamikaze. Like in his head, that's his way of change it, like doing the right thing. But once again, it's motivated out of fear.
Yeah.
And then when he finally chooses to live, like that's him finally being courageous and not acting out of fear.
100%.
So cool. So cool.
This is a good movie.
It's a great movie.
I agree.
What an amazing ride.
Should we do a rating out of 10?
Rating it? We could rate it.
What do you think?
Should we rate it?
Just like on the spot.
I like the doodads. They each do it out of 10, but we'll have a collective score, so it'll be out of 30.
Oh, I like that.
So yeah, let's go around. Let's rate this. What would you guys think out of 10? And you can go decimals. You can go decimals if you want.
Oh, deci's?
Are we talking deci's, bro?
Talking deci's?
Yeah. And as you guys think on that, I brought this movie up because someone asked me if I'd seen a good movie lately, and this is one of the ones that came up to me because I feel like this is such a quality, well-written movie that once again, I think I said this at the first part of the episode, which was, the same day that we're recording this, of course.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Why would I even say that? Weird. That's weird that I brought that up. Of course it's the same day. That everything that's wrong with Hollywood movies right now, you can point to this movie as this is a movie that's getting them right. Well thought out characters, well written characters, stories that make sense, real motivation, real people, written dialogue that makes sense. You don't have just like exposition characters walking around being like, I need to be here so I can tell you what the plot is going on. What the plot is going on,
Yes.
All right. You guys ready with a rating?
Yeah, I think that I would go 8.75.
Wow.
8 3/4 out of 10. This is a very, very good movie to me.
Interesting.
I want Clark to be like 4.
Yeah. I was close. I
hated it.
For me, I'm going to give it at least a 9 just because as we were talking, it's a very memorable movie. Like, maybe not remembering names quite as well just because they're simply like longer. Just I wasn't concerned about that, but just like the actual story and like scenes and like you said, like people ask about movies that are worth watching. Like I think about this movie often.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm giving it at least a 9 just because I think it was just so quality, and I teared up a little, had a good chuckle. I thought the action was awesome. Yeah, it hit all the markers.
Yeah. Do you want to go 9?
Yeah, I'll just give it a straight 9.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I would also like after this, I'd love to hear your guys like what's your highest scored movie too. I feel like that'd be an interesting thing to kind of to go with this, like, or even just like what's your favorite movie? What would you rate it? But I would say I think I'm gonna go. I feel like I'm gonna go. It is so good. I think I'm gonna go 9 too, because I think this is
nice
on par with. I struggle giving anything a solid 10 because I feel like there's critiques of everything. But I think I would give this a 9. All right, so we have a 26.75 out of 30.
Sweet.
It's a good score.
Good grade.
It's a good score.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, do you guys have another movie? Do you have like your top rated movie? Or is there a movie you'd give a 10 to?
Oh, I don't think I would ever. I can't. I don't know if I would ever do it. I have not ever given a movie a 10. My highest rated movie is Alien, because that's my favorite movie ever, and that is a 9.5.
Wow.
Just so freaking close. Like I've no notes.
No notes.
Nothing. No, like I wish they would have done this. I just love it so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what movie I'd rate. I don't think I ever rated a movie as a 10 as well. Yeah, I mean, I think of movies like this feels like cliche, but I think movies like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or some of those movies that are just like up there for nostalgia factors.
Yeah.
Dark Knight is probably one of the higher rated movies just because this is classic, but I love Heath Ledger's Joker. There's obviously all the lore behind his acting of it, but just from an actual like movie, I just really, really enjoyed it. And even that, I probably would give it similar to this Godzilla -1, where like it just kind of hits all the markers, but it's a 9, up there. So, yeah, I don't know. That's a really interesting question, but I don't think I've ever given a movie a 10.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's weird because I don't know. It feels wrong to give a movie a 10, but I'm like, who's going to be mad at me for being like, Fellowship of the Ring,
right.
10 out of 10. It's like no one's going to bust in and like, freeze, get out of here.
I would be so mad at you.
But I think, because honestly, I would have said before, like, if we're not talking decimals, like Lord of the Rings would be like a 9 out of 10 for me, which would be like the highest rated thing for me. But I think that's why this is on that level. It's on that like pretty much perfect movie that is so good, so well written. Wow, it's just a great movie, and it also I think got me excited about, this is Japanese, but that kind of like foreign film. And then after this, it got me really into some North Korean, and oh my gosh, not North Korean. They don't make.
Oh, it's the best you got to hold that material.
I really got into it. Oh my god, it's South Korea.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
No, I
Train to
mean,
Busan.
Yeah, Train to Busan, Parasite.
I'm just such a big fan of North Korea.
Hot take for the episode: North Korea.
Yeah.
How did your feature presentation get canceled?
That's a good point.
So we'll talk about it.
Oh man.
But yeah, well, Parasite is an incredible film.
Yeah,
like that's
terrific.
In that vein of 8, 9, for me up there, score too. So,
Keith, have you seen Parasite?
Yes, I have. So I think there's a lot of people that don't watch it just because it's a foreign film. Like, not like that they're against those, but it's just like, I don't want to read subtitles. You hear that a lot. Or same thing like.
Absolutely.
People with animation even. Like, I don't want an animated movie, And it's like, dude, Arcane is actually really good. You should check it out. So awesome. Well, thanks for being on, boys. Clarky, you got anything you want to plug? What you're up to? What you're doing? If you're
just chilling out, maxing and relaxing. But I every once in a while record stuff for the Knights of the Nerd Table.
Yeah,
which is like D&D, all things nerdy. Some of the guys on there play Magic and all that kind of stuff. But besides that, that's kind of it.
Yeah. We'll put a link to your guys' stuff on that. So you do some D&D and some other, play some Fortnite. Get some Fortnite.
Fortnite on there.
Yeah. It's delightful.
I'll do like a massive multiverse episode sometime. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I was like,
Crossover.
I'd love to get all of us together with Knights of the Nerd Table, and we do stuff with the doodads, and like, that'd be so fun to get like all of us on, just like a massive like movie talk, and
Megapod.
Wow, I feel like we could do that. Like, what would be a movie that like, I'm sure there's quite a few that like we could all be on, but like 8 of us all on.
Figure it out.
And then we could rate a bunch of energy drinks on mouthfeel.
Dude, I'm down. I love mouthfeel stuff, so yeah, I'm in.
What was that? That's Mason and Parker's pod, right?
Yeah, what are we talking about?
What are we talking about today? We'll link that show as well. But I love that. Cracked me up so much. They did an episode where they were like, you guys did like 3 episodes, I think. There was like rating
we did
drinks on mouth.
10 different energy drinks on. Like we talked about everything, but it was pretty strictly point A was mouthfeel. Like, how did it feel when you took a sip? and they feel different. All those drinks feel different. Oh,
oh man, awesome. All right. Well, thanks for being on. Godzilla -1. Go see it. Why did the chicken cross the road?
why?
To get to Godzilla.
To get to Godzilla. Hold on.
I was right.
Why did the chicken cross the road? To get to Godzilla.
Very nice.
And then everyone,
Very nice.
it's pretty funny. Thank you. It's pretty funny. You guys are too much.
Little did you know that your feature presentation is filmed in front of a live studio audience. There it is.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone watching the show, enjoying it. Now our classic dance number will now begin. So. Welcome to your feature presentation, the podcast where we bring you the latest and greatest movies in pop culture. Here we go.
That was good. That was really good timing.
Crazy. Why did the chicken cross the road?
Heath's mom.